ASOIAF, as Homelander in Game of Thrones Chapter 11, a damsel in distress. The bright afternoon had passed, the sun began slowly creeping back to sleep. It was an eventful day for Helios. He finally had a friend or a servant, he did not care for the difference. Friend and slave were the same thing to him. Every man he would ever meet would be a friend and a slave. That was the true beauty of absolute power. Men would say they want equals and that they want honest friends. No. What everybody truly desired was someone who would speak freely with them before continuing to do what he was told. That was the plain truth of it. Any man could be a slave and any man could be a king. In the end, it all depended on fate, and fate had been generous to Helios, compensating him for the many wrongs done to him in a past life. He was truly a god now. That still was difficult to believe. His new friend Luther, an insignificant fourth son of a knight serving in a lowly lordling's castle. He never had a stable future to begin with. In fact, he was very lucky he even became a knight. A life of a hedge knight was decent, not a good one but not a peasant either, just plain. But he had served two great houses, the Heightwers and the Ashford. He had contacts. Conveniently, he had been removed from Heightwer service just a moon prior, spending time drinking away in inns all over the place. Such a decent fellow, discarded like a used toilet paper. Helios mused. It was sad really that no one recognized this man enough to keep him. He was now old and without a stable future. Unmarried too, no son to carry his legacy. In fact, I was his only hope to be significant, and he had recognized it. The moment I sat on his table, his eye had gained a glimmer that had not left, all the more reason he would be loyal. He had given me the name of the most expensive blacksmith in the city. His shop was located near the citadel. Apparently he was even the armorer of the Heightwers themselves. It was truly the best Helios could ask for at the moment. While on his leisurely stroll on his horse, he had bought a quill and paper, sketching the glorious armor he intended to don. He was by no means an expert in sketching, let alone with a quill, but he did manage. "Say, Luther, you have been here for some time, eh?" Helios asked, his tone casual and plain. "My lord, 5 years in Old Town," Luther spoke, a tinge of sorrow in his voice. Helios recognized it. 5 whole years to the Heightwers to simply be told to leave, that's rough, buddy. Of all the places in Westeros, the least bit honor was in the south. Specifically Dorne, Westerlands and the Reach. They fancied themselves schemers, you see, and were proud of it, always at the center of all ongoing schemes and plots. "When I sit on that ugly iron chair, I must give the Starks more power. I am a Stark glazer, their loyalty comes without concessions. Such were the type who actually deserved concessions, so you must know someone that would sell me a ship, right?" I asked. Gods, this obsession with a ship was embarrassing. If that firefly had not blown up the docks, I would have been a happier man, but no. The idiot had to antagonize me. "There are a few who would make a ship should you pay them." I huffed in disappointment. "I know some merchants who might sell their ships, but that would cost you." Helios perked up. "Fucking finally," he thought. "Can you arrange a meeting? I need a decent-sized vessel and a crew." Helios asked, almost pleading. "I can, my lord. I know a few who would sell a ship. A crew I am unaware. That comes with a private ship that did not die." Point Helios. Actually, he needed a ship empty first before anything. Still had a vault lying in the sea to retrieve. "That's all right. Do one thing and just go and arrange me a meeting for a ship and meet me back at the inn." Helios commanded Luther. "Are you sure, my lord? We could wait till tomorrow to get a meeting. Sun will set in an hour or two. The meeting will happen on the morrow. Arrange it today." Then the blacksmith. "You said he was the big shot, so I presume he would have the biggest shop." Helios smirked as Luther chuckled. "All right, see you in an hour, my lord." Luther. Helios POV. Things were happening quickly, but not quickly enough. But I suppose when you are faster than a speeding bullet, everything appears slow. Luther had left a few minutes to go. I would have a ship in the morning. But my attention was to the armorer. I had finished my sketch and had prepared a description for the beauty. There was still a doubt in my mind that what I was going to decide could even be made. The armor had no practical reason for me except being a symbol. A representation of my glory. Will he actually make it? Is the iron making good enough on this planet? Luther had told me an average proper knight armor came for about 4 gold dragons like the one he wore, a nice and impressive display. A hedge knight's would be half that or less. A proper armor of a lord, however beautiful and imposing, would be about 50 or so gold dragons. This would probably cast Motilda. I cut of as I hear someone yell, "My horse stops." I focus my super senses to that direction. "No, no, no, please," a panic-stricken female voice cried out in an ally. I could also hear a few men laughing. I knew what this was. I immediately stopped, redirect my horse to the narrow alley where the voice was coming from. The cruel laughs were louder now, an animalistic noise that I had not heard even from the white or the fire demon. This was something simpler and somehow more terrifying. I stepped down from the horse, rushing towards the empty street where it was happening. I saw 3 men, vicious and cruel. They were holding down a child, a girl in her teenage years. She was dressed in fine clothes. 2 men held her hands as one was behind her, loosening his pants. A sudden wrath overtakes me as I see the men and the whimpering girl. Unforgivable, the one loosening his pant looks at me surprised. "Hey, what do you want?" The other 2 turn as well, as does the girl. The vein in on my forehead bulges. This was the first time I had truly been angry at something. Before I knew it, the men were dead. My eyes twitched. Fuck oh tilde, he got sliced in half. The others could even process what occurred for several long moments. By the time the reality set for them, I rushed upon them. grabbing the second man by the face, lifting him from the ground before he could blink. Then I squeezed slow and terrible. He screamed, not for long. There was a terrible bursting noise before blood sprayed everywhere. The third man, finally realizing what had occurred, began to run. Adrenaline finally seeping through, but that did not matter. He did not make it far before getting lasered. A long silence stretched for a few long moments as thought he world itself had gone quiet, trying to register what had just happened. Then it hit me, fuck, the girl had seen everything. I turned around looking at her trembling figure. I had just blown my cover. The girl shrank further at my look, leaning against the wall so hard as if she was hopping to merge in it. Poor thing was shook to her core. My eyes returned to their normal shade as I slowly descended back into the ground. I began walking to her slowly, my head raised in a gesture indicating her to calm down. She was dressed like a proper lady, just wearing a black cloak. A poor disguise. I stooped down to one knee. She was still trembling. I spoke as softly as I could muster. What is your name, child? She did not dare meet my gaze. After a few moments of crying, she spoke, her voice broken and afraid. A chapter 12, a symbol Helios Pav. The girl was following me. The actual hell would she do that for? She was whimpering like a puppy before. Apparently a runaway girl, escaping from an arranged marriage her father had set her up for without any proper thought into the process of escape. I had given her my yellow scarf and a pouch of golden dragons. Why was she following me? I die not want to be a babysitter of a 14-year-old girl. Why are you following me? I turn around to see no one, but little Ria was hiding behind. Hey, I had X-ray vision. Come out, girl, right now. I speak in an annoyed tone. She slowly stumbles forward, embarrassingly, still stinking of fear, heart running faster than my goddamn horse. I have no place to go and I don't want to go home, she muttered. Why me? Look kid, arranged marriages are not too bad, alright, listen to the family. I turn to leave. The girl rushes forward holding the stirrup of my damn horse. I will go with you to the star world, please. I facepalm internally. I had told the girl I was from the stars above. When she asked me what was I, this stubborn little shit was like Arya Stark. Look girl, I can't go back there myself right now, so let go, I yell annoyed. Then L will go where you are going. My eyes visibly widen. The fucking audacity, she was pissing herself a few minutes ago. No, I kick my horse forward, but the little shit still does not let go. I look around, shit, people were starting to look, giving up. I pick the girl up with one hand and put her on my lap. She freezes, her cheeks turning pinkish. Ugh, the brat was still a brat. I kick my horse forward and head to my intended location. The blacksmith shop was distinguishable. I was the tallest building in the street. I make my way inside after telling the girl to tie up the horse. The shop was busy, multiple smith and their apprentices. One such youngster notices and steps forward. What may we help you with, Lord? He looks at me expectantly, recognizing me as a noble. Me to the main man. I have a good offer for him, I speak as the little shit comes running through. The apprentice glances at her but leaves as she stands next to me. A few moments later the master smith comes walking in, a tall bulky old man in his 60s but well-built muscle. Yes my lord, he said almost boredly. He was used to things such as this. Then I hand him the sketch. He looks at it, eyes flashing his recognition. Good design my lord, clearly a beauty. He smiled. It can be done. Not just yet man, I smiled. Here's what it should really be. Forge me a suit of full plate. The steel should be polished to a deep sapphire blue with every edge lined in bright gold. Etch fine filigree, stars and feather-like patterns everywhere. His eyes widened. This was overboard even for a lord, but I continue. Shape the breastplate around a great golden eagle with its wings fully spread, red eyes. Look, I point at the sketch. The shoulder guards must take the form of eagle heads, their layered feathers flowing backwards to protect the upper arm. I could not draw it, so best write everything down, I say as the now stunned man rushes for a quill and paper. After he returned I continued, raise the gorget high around the neck and decorate it with elegant gold scrollwork. Don't have to use real gold though, ha, I smile at my own joke. The gauntlets, vambraces, cuisses, greaves and sabatons should be sleek and perfectly fitted, with gilded trim and subtle celestial engravings like stars. At the waist forge a broad golden belt with a large crown emblem worked into the buckle. The cloak must be long and heavy, made of the finest crimson stuff. Embroider its borders with intricate gold vines, laurels and stars. Across the back, stitch a massive golden eagle with its wings spread wide, surrounded by delicate golden filigree that climbs from the hem to the shoulders. When it catches the wind, it should look less like a cloth and more like a royal banner brought to life. Leave no part plain. Every inch must speak of your finest work and craftsmanship. I finally finished looking at the blacksmith. The man looked bewildered, to say the least. Not just him, the entire shop had halted as I began my rant. They were all looking at me, some confused, some shocked and some then pissed. What I had just done was basically like an architect giving engineers his most outlandish design and telling them to build it properly. Another moment passed by as they all looked at each other. Even Ria had gone quiet. Unbelievable. I was truly a god perhaps. This is a heavy task my lord, the blacksmith spoke as I smiled just a little. Well, it's more of a showpiece than something I would use in battle. I am sure you can do it. He relaxed a little. My lord, the normal armor for lords costs about 50 dragons, but this, what you just described, will cost hundreds. He did not know how to continue. This was the most expensive thing he would ever make, and I knew that. This particular smith was one of 3 who could reforge Valyrian steel. According to Luther, he was the one reforging Valyrian steel for the Grandmeistars. He could do it. It would cost at least 200 gold, my lord. He hesitated. This was super expensive. About times the cost of a high lord's armor. But that did not matter. I will craft it myself if you are willing. It will take 3 moons, he said, determined this would be the flashiest work of his. Difficult and costly. The cost did not matter, but the time did. I am willing to pay 300, do it within a month, I said. I was not waiting that long here. If someone suspects shit, I have to tell another crazy story. That was getting real tiresome real fast. I toss a bag of coins to him. There's 50 now, see you in a month, then I leave. The stunned blacksmiths behind me were still gaping. Good, the brat finally followed after a moment. She was like sad lost puppy following anyone showing her decent kindness. Chapter 13, Wildcard Helios Pav. It was almost funny watching Luther's visible frustration over the fact that the third member in our little crew would be an annoying brat. He had tried to protest, just like I once had. But in the end, none of us had the bravado to kick out a lost child. We agreed to tolerate that thing's presence. The night at the inn was as comfortable as sleeping of dirt, worse even. It smelled of bread and wine and cum. Super smell does not help much in this case. Regardless, things were as good as can be. I had spent a night without killing anyone. Yay, but sleep was non-existent. The thought of gods of this world, or maybe just a few, wanting me dead was not a good feeling. The better question yet was the fact that why did the Red Priest show up for me? Shouldn't the Light Lord tell them I was an enemy? Or perhaps it was a trap, or perhaps he was hoping to use me as a tool to further his influence but got enraged as I killed his followers. A mystery that will be solved in due time, I suppose. The most interesting thing, however, is the fact that I have not encountered any other deity yet. The Starry Sept is located here, and the 7 did not greet their better yet. Were mommy and daddy scared? Did they even exist? The faith of the 7 was the only one prohibiting magic. But the faith people here produced only made magical things stronger. Interesting ship wager had gone well enough, 250 gold for a decent vessel. It was expensive but manageable. I had a grand total of 700 gold left, and I still have to pay another 250 to the blacksmith. So 450, an impressive sum, but I needed a proper crew. And Whore Hill is located further away from land. A ship would be useless for some time if I truly intended to hire a fat boy and save him from his unfortunate fate. I needed a capable man who could help me govern. Samuel was still a boy and a coward. A boy so green he pissed grass. He was not needed. I almost wanted to kidnap a Meister from the Citadel, but that would be a whole another problem. I still had to wait another month, fought the armor, and I needed a crew to sail to Essos. There was perhaps no choice but to wait. A god getting halted by deadlines, I walked to my new ship. It was not a new ship. The second-hand ship wore its years openly. The hull was faded by the sun, its paint was chipped away to reveal the timber. She is no beauty, but she looks dependable. Already survived the seas, many lessons, but she will survive a potential monster act as well. Alright, gang. This is our new home. We live here until we get the armor. I say to the 2 tired souls behind me, Rhea will do the cleaning. I say as Luther, the grown-ass man, almost giggles. I already made sure they were cleaned properly, my lord. Luther speaks, looking almost happy at my disappointment. This ship was worth less than they made us pay for it, but since you were in a hurry. Alright, calm down, look, we would be leaving to a different continent soon. Lock in. I tell the morons, annoyed. Lock in. What is that? Rhea asked me naively. It means get serious, there is a whole new life ahead of us now. Say, brat, are you sure you want to continue? You just might not see your family again. The girl hesitates, going silent. Her first thought, I smile to myself, this brat was more worth than the keep. Yes, I have always wanted to see the Titan of Bravos, she exclaimed, not an ounce of guilt. How miserable was this chick's family life? I heard a deep gurgle. It was Luther's stomach. My lord, perhaps time for supper, the hag asked slyly. I sighed. I did not need to eat apparently, but I would still be the one to pay. Alright man, take us to the most lucrative place. I smile. Ugh, these fake performances was getting so lame, the wine might just satisfy me. The brat was practically beaming. How exactly did she get used to me so easily? After riding for some time we reached to the largest inn in the city. The place dominated an entire square, wide balconies and a dozen chimneys. This was a place for the lordlings. As we enter, the strong smell of lavender greets me. The innkeeper, a middle-aged, big-titted woman, personally led us away from the clamor of the great hall. There was music and laughter, but I wanted silence. The hearing was still getting adjusted. As we sit down, the innkeeper begins taking the orders. Luther had ordered roasted bacon, a mug of dark ale. The girl had ordered roast lamb with fresh bread and an apple pie. I had just ordered a mug of warm milk. My test buds had demanded it. These people were blind robbers. This was how my thoughts worked. I had been reciprocated nothing. I would have my money's worth. Hey Luther, sing a song for us. I spoke with a calm voice. Luther almost choked on his ale. Rhea had looked greatly amused. Ah, my lord, I am hardly a singer, he stuttered. Sing, your lord commands it. He was not going to be released. He looked pleadingly as I cut him off, a cruel smirk adorning my lips. Rhea was fighting a smile and failing. Seeing himself as having no choice, he thought for a short moment. Then clearing his throat he began, and who are you? The proud Lord said. Rhea burst out laughing. Even I chuckled. This was certainly a choice for song at a good time. His voice was also like a choking goat. The entire intimidating factor gone. Luther's face flushed red in embarrassment. No, no, continue, Luther, I spoke back. He looked at me pleadingly again as I simply gestured him to start. And who are you? The proud lord said that I must bow so low. Only a cat oaf a different coat, that's all the truth I know, in a coat of gold or a coat of red. A lion still has claws, in mine are long and sharp. My lord as long and sharp as yours, and so he spoke. The latch clicked. Without waiting for permission, the door swung open. An average height man stepped inside with measured, unhurried strides. No smile had touched his face. His expression was composed, almost indifferent. Almost, but mine was not. Oberyn fucking Martell, my mind went blank. I hope I am not interrupting, he said evenly. His eyes flickered for a moment at us. I didn't think I would see a Lannister in Old Town. He was almost amused. You people seem to be everywhere. There was venom in his voice, poorly concealed. You must be lost. Luther put a hand near his sword subconsciously. Am I? Maybe, but certainly not the only one. He smiled. A woman entered the room, her complexion dark. Olive-toned skin kissed by the sun, wavy balk hair that fell freely over her shoulders, expressive dark brown eyes, they were tensed. Come here, she grabbed Oberyn's arm. No, no, lover, you come here, he pulled her in closer. A rare sight is ahead of us, look, a Lannister and a lost height were in the same room. He laughed, pointing at me. A Lannister and a lost height were. That took me a second to process before my eyes widened, only a small fraction. I turned to look to my right. Rhea was trembling. Color had drained from her face. Motherfuck Tilda. Chapter 14. Visiting a monument. The trip to the Height was a grim and silent one. Helios's second time entering this place, though the afternoon sun and a lack of urgency made him appreciate the white pillar more. It was an imposing monument, even if not very defensible, but it was imposing. Taller than the wall itself. It was not much surprise that these people looked down on their own liege lords, and Helios was their prisoner, Attalus, that is what they thought. Second these pompous men start overreaching, they would die. Helios wanted to test his mettle against an entire city. Perhaps Rhea too had saw the fate of everyone. She was scared, and it was not because she was caught, and it was not because she was worried for Helios. She knew what he was, and she knew others of her family would too if they overstepped. Helios was surrounded by a dozen men, Height or in Dornish. Oberyn was the one leading them, his smugness gone. He knew Helios was not a Lannister now. He was disappointed. The whole situation was amusing to him still. Helios would soon have to explain himself to men he could snap in half like a twig. Even now his hand was itching to beat the Martel bloody. Put him in his place. He had already had a backstory in mind. But Oberyn was here and he would see through it, no doubt. But that did not matter. Helios could handle it. Rhea Pav. This was bad. As we made our way to the main hall, Lord Helios had gone utterly quiet. Ignoring everyone and everything. He would kill everyone. He was a banished god from the stars above. He cared not for mortal ways. And my father Gunther would not have what he believed was a foreign lord speaking with him without any fear. He shuddered. She wanted to warn her father and Lord Heitwer, but her father would only get angrier. Rhea did not believe he cared. He never did, and when he did it was rarely ever good. He was a man thirsty for blood, and when he never got to use his wrath to beat up knights, he would use it on his children. The all-new Rhea was aware, but nobody had ever done anything, ever stepped forward, ever said it was wrong. Lord Heitwer had locked himself with his daughter researching magic. He could not be bothered. Her uncles could not be bothered either. They were all more schemers than knights. Rhea was not pretty compared to the other ladies. She was thin and bony and just plain. The ladies made sure to remind Hierof that I was never one of them. She was always alone. No gallant knight would ask for my favor, no man would give her flowers. They all had said that, and I had known. I was a third daughter of a third son. There was not much for me, perhaps being a lady in waiting to Marjorie Tyrell, but that was impossible. But the final straw was my marriage. She was to marry the heir to Hornhill. This would be good, great even. But the other ladies had just laughed. Samwell Tarly was fat and ugly and cowardly. His father made him wear dresses and walk him around the keep. I had felt bad for him, but I would not marry him and be bound to an unimpressive, pathetic man. All I ever wanted was a gallant knight, but that was too much, so I ran. In the dead of night, I was first caught by 3 men who were laughing as they held me down. I did not know why, but I was scared. They wanted me dead. It was scarier than when her father had beat us when he was drunk. But then I was saved by a man who threw fire out of his eyes, moved faster than she could comprehend. And by the gods was he beautiful, tall and muscular, with a jaw more well-defined than she had ever seen. His eyes were striking blue and his hair was more gold than a Lannister's. If gods were real, this is what they would look like, so I had followed him. And now, thanks to my naivety, he was here. A prisoner, he would kill them. He looked angry. His eyes were fuming while his face showed nothing. This would just end up being the end of Hightors if they did not tread carefully. Helios POV. As we finally were brought to the main hall, the entirety of the Hightors were already present. The ladies whispering in the corners and the main lords waiting in their table. The sight would be imposing to most. It was a big room, a fancy table and pissy men sitting on impressive chairs. There were better ways to describe the sight before him, but he was not in danger here. He was far from being intimidated. This was just an annoyance. A man had gotten up from his chair and walking towards us. He grabbed Rhea by the hand and dragged her to the gods before telling the gods to take her to her chambers. It was strange how a noble could just break etiquette and act so rashly. But he was a father whose daughter was missing, so expected. "What is the meaning of this?" the man at the main chair at the center had demanded. He looked unimpressive and bookish. "Lord Hightor, I bring you, the man your granddaughter was found with." A round of murmurs went around the rooms as Oberyn smirked. "This fucker is trying to cause a scandal." It was obvious enough, his wording was deliberate and intentional. I knew the Reach and the Dornish had bad blood, but he was practically slut-shamming a child to humiliate the Hightwars. He preached and whined about his sister's fate, but he was doing a similar thing now. These people were all hypocrites, crying about the injustice happening to them and doing the same to others. They were all pathetic. "My lord," I stepped forward, stopping the arrogant cunt from speaking. "There has been a misunderstanding. I have not kidnapped anyone. I am a man of adventures. I met Lady Rhea very recently at an inn." I was recalling my tales of adventures as she listened, as did others. "She later wished to join a new crew I was assembling to sail to Yati." My words were clear and precise, not a shred of pleadingness and not a shred of fear. These fools would not see him beg. "So you lured my daughter to take her with you?" Rhea's father had spoke accusingly. I face-palmed hard, and I did it in front of them. This seemed to have quite the reaction as they all looked at me, their jaws slacked. They were not used to being treated like this. They had expected me to cower, probably. I cut him off." "Save the drama for your sycophants. I demand a trial by combat." I spoke loud and clear. Everyone's breath hitched, gasps filling the room, ladies murmuring and the lords being shook. Even the Dornish cunt's face had gone stern, serious for once. I was not going to have a debate with these fools who had already judged me guilty and wait as the Martel made the situation worse to drag the Hightor name in the mud. This would end here and now. Whoever stepped forward to fight now would never fight again. I needed a punching bag. 15. Chapter 15, A Sad Death. Helios POV. As my words finally rested and the shock on their ugly little faces subdued, all hell broke loose. "You dare insult us, bloody foreigner, insolent fool." A couple more insult went about. The entire hall was offended, except me and Luther, who was also just shook. He probably thought I would name him champion. Silence. Leighton Hightor made the hall go silent, though the whispers had remained still very loud for me to hear. They were all pissed off. It was nice. "You foreigner are an audacious one. Are you certain you want what you asked for?" Leighton spoke, trying to hide his outrage and failing. "Yup." I put on a cheerful smile, pissing them all off even more. It was something else entirely to have people be pissed at you but not giving two shits about it. I will kill you." Gunther, Rhea's pissy daddy, spoke, shaking from anger, looking at me with a face full of red. He looked like a cartoon right about now. "Do your best." I clapped. "So where and who do I fight?" The outrage was spectacular. To them this was a scared ritual, one that left the verdict to the gods, but it was a loophole, a good one. This law was cool, so I would not change it when I took over this world. "Trial shall take place on the morrow. Choose your champion, foreigner." These people did not know my name, did they? Unacceptable. "Helios fights his own battles, but do take your time to pick a champion for yourself, my lord." I put on a mask of concern. Gods, these guys could not even do anything now. This law was truly great. It won't go anywhere. Luther POV. I sighed as I heard him say that he would be his own champion. I was an old man, decent with a sword, but I could not fight highborn knights who were bred to be warriors. I had served this man, Helios of Troy, for only a few days, but he seemed a good man. He was lost and was seeking to go back home. With the way he had thrown away gold, he must have a rich family. He was tall, very tall, and abnormally muscular. Muscles that I have only ever seen in the finest of statues. There was little doubt in my mind that he could fight, but can he defeat a knight? Especially the one the Hightwars would pick. There was little left to do. The guards escorted me to my assigned chamber. As I began leaving, I saw Lord Helios being stopped by Prince Oberyn Martell. My teeth grind looking at that pretentious man. He was the reason we were stuck in this situation. Everywhere that man went, he brought nothing but trouble. His tale with the Yornwoods was very popular. He had seduced Edgar Yornwood's paramour and killed Lord Edgar with poison during their duel, getting the name Red Viper. True to his name and his wretched Dornish nature, he had us set up in a trap before we could even explain our side. Lord Helios had demanded a trial by combat immediately. He had realized the situation would devolve and rumors would about him and Rhea. No, Lady Rhea would only spread the more this goes on. Smart, but I could not help but be concerned. Can he truly fight and win? But there was no dwelling on it now. I knew the type of people the Hightwars, hell, all the lords of Reach were. Ambitious, pompous, and without much honor. Schemers, the whole bloody lot of them. They had been ensutled much thanks to Oberyn and would now do their best to win this trial. After walking for what felt like a long time, I finally reached my little chamber. Well, it was a cell if anything. But I had slept in worse places before. I lay down and tried to go to sleep. Gods above, save Helios from what I had to come. He has a greater purpose to serve yet. I was never a believer, but calling upon the gods did bring some comfort. The morning sun had welcomed Helios with a certain warmth that he had never noticed before. It was time for the show soon, but it was not that which worried him. He did not care for the life of the poor soul going against him, but he had not seen the brat among the watchers. It was strange to him. He used his X-ray vision to look through the building, but he had not seen her anywhere. It was strange indeed. The viewers, mostly nobles, had been watching with a quiet anticipation. Trial by combats were rare, and when they did happen they made for fine songs. But ultimately it was a source of entertainment to these people. It mattered little to them that the fate of someone's life will be decided. But that was the truth everywhere. I was in the end a game, a show, and shows must be spectacular. Luther approached Helios. "Haven't worn your armor yet, my lord?" he asked, trying to sound stern and composed, but he was worried and Helios knew it. Helios smiled. "I do not need one, friend. I could be blinded, with both my arms tied behind my back, and I shall still win this farce." "Worry about their poor champion." Luther wanted to object, to say this is folly, but there was something in his words, something certain and confident that made Luther simply retreat to the stand. Helios needed to make this show worth remembering, and to do that he needed to be unique. He decided, today there would be no need to hide. Today there would be humiliation and awe in the air. Soon enough, the Heightware champion had made his way to the arena. It was Sir Gunther, Rhea's father. The smug bastard was annoying that much was known. He was adorned with a beautiful silver armor with a green cape. A cape, in an actual 1v1? This man either must be a great talent or has never been in a proper fight before. The armor also just spoke wealth, a noble appearance than an intimidating one. It looked like a showpiece, much like mine own potential armor. The Higtor was painted in the breastplate, fine engraving of waves and stars all over the arms. I stepped forward next, slow and casual, not a single glance spared to the audience. My hand in my pockets, my black tunic looked beautiful on me. It was plain but great stuff. Loose black trousers tucked neatly into the leather boots. I was a beauty. The ladies seemed to think so as I saw them all swoon, but they all looked shocked too. Even Oberyn and Ilaria looked at me like I was a fool. I had no armor and I had no blade. "What are you doing, bastard?" Gunther asked mockingly. "Where are your weapons?" "I don't need them for you," I say loud and clear. It was fun being this powerful, he thought to himself. "Helios, this is a sacred ritual. Do not mock it, do not dare." "I am not mocking this ritual, I am mocking you." "Enough. Helios, you must carry a weapon. Even if you can't wear armor." Lord Heightware spoke, looking like a lord for the first time. Helios POV. My eyes scanned the crowd. Some were dumbfounded and some were confused. Most had a sneer on their face. Luther had gone pale seeing my performance. I look at Lord Heightware for one final time, then I turn around, walking towards the edge of the arena. I pick up a rock. "This will be my weapon," I say, raising it high. The ladies gasped and some lords, men who looked as though they were proper warriors, scoffed and some laughed. "This is the weapon I am most proficient at." They all laugh at me, but they don't know it yet. Today Rhea's father is gonna die. I would worry about her opinion of me, but she was not here. "It's fair game." Are you sure?" For the first time they all looked confused. Deathly I smile viciously, and for the very first time I see Gunther hesitate. "Then let it begin," Lord Leighton commanded. The Septon had stepped forward to begin his bollocks. As the prayer finally came to an end, the fight had begun. Gunther rushed upon me, his strides heavy and slow. The armor was also very heavy, full plate. He swung his sword straight at my neck. He wanted to end it quick. Good, at least he realized that he would tire quickly, or so I hope he did. Anywho, I blocked his sword with the rock. They all freezed for a moment. I had not dodged or evaded but blocked his strike with a plain rock. He was now staring at me. They all were staring at me, clearly dumbfounded. "This is entertaining." I did not flinch or so much as moved an inch from my place. My gaze locking onto his beneath that ugly helmet. I sat her at his frozen self, my eyes devoid of any warmth, my face a husk of the smirk I wore earlier. His heart beat faster. I grabbed onto his breastplate before giving him a terrible push. He fell back. To the spectators he flew backwards before landing on his back, some 8 feet away from me. My eyes meet the viewers. They were quiet. I liked that feeling. Gunther scrambled himself back up, adrenaline seeping into his veins. He was serious now and scared too. He looked at me for a long moment before charging again. I dropped the rock. I gave a quick dodge to his slash. I turned to my left before landing a mean backhand to his helmet. He flew back again, several feet away. But this time he did not get up. I had broken his neck. He won't be getting up ever. But the crowd was expecting something else. They were expecting him to get back up and slay the rogue. Looking at his body, I walked away. Chapter 16, A Simple Plan. The trial by combat had caused a stir. Helios had expected. After all, he killed an armored knight with a backhand slap. Broke his neck in two. He still remembered the sweet stunned silence of the crowd of nobles. It was fun. Luther had been scared of Helios since the display he had shown. It was not human. Nobody in the Heightware had wanted to be in his presence since. Even the usual smug Oberyn maintained his distance. The bards were already immortalizing him. But that was not the matter that concerned him. It was the absence of Rhea. The girl seemed to have disappeared, perhaps shipped off to get married. Helios could not ask the Heightwares. He had just killed Leighton's third son, an accomplished knight. All in a spectacular display of physical dominance that would make the mountain look tame. They were currently staying at the ship. Luther had become almost certain that the Heightwares would try something. But whether they would succeed was another matter entirely. At least they would get exposed as lying scum in the process. There was also a vault in Helios's cabin that was not there before. Luther was only told it was shipped at night and that he was passed out drunk out of his mind. Luther had believed that he liked drinking and Helios was very convincing. The next few days had passed in a search for a crew that would sail to Essos for a sum. It was a hard search, but Lord Helios had offered very generous terms, so a willing crew had appeared. Helios had taken time to search for the brat whose father he had just killed. Embarrassed would be a better word. The world would not believe such a ridiculous tale so meekly. They would assume the Heightware was weak. All in all, the Heitwer name was dragged to the mud. He was entirely unable to find the girl and he could not bring himself to talk to a Heitwer, so he ooked for the next best choice. Oberyn Martell. He was easy to find, he was in a brothel. In the early morning, fucking a guy as his paramour fucked a girl in the same bed. These Dornish are freaky to the extreme was the only thought that entered Helios's mind. He would not deny the allure of worldly pleasure, but he was too drunk on power to care. Besides, he still remembered being cucked. Sex was not worth it. He walked in uninvited, his steps calm and deliberate as he entered the room. He smiled. It felt like karma. The brothel keeper had tried to interrupt him, but even she knew who he was and was not very willing to get her neck snapped. Helios Pav. I entered his room, interrupting his very passionate session of degeneracy. He needed a single glance at me before sobering up and immediately rising to his feet. Lord Helios of Yati, what do I owe the pleasure? He tried, speaking casually. But he was on Goward. The quick rise to his feet, a slightly quicker heart, and immediately sending his pet out was evidence enough. Good, he knows he is fucked if I act, I mused internally. I knew that he knew I was not from Yati, but what is the point dwelling on it? Some backstory was needed, he cannot possibly dwell on it. Prince, I was hopping to ask you about Rhea Hightower. I have not seen her these past few days. I figured an apology was owed. By both you and me. I added the last part to get a reaction, and that was successful. Me, what have I done? It was you who killed her father so casually. He muttered, being confused. I chuckled at that. I stepped forward just a bit. His entire body tightens, instinctively drawing the knife he had kept behind him as soon as I had entered. You see. It was you who fueled the flame. You would have kept fueling it had I not just demanded a trial by combat outright. It's only fair you apologize for ruining a little girl's life. I say with an exaggerated expression. It may have been a little overboard, but Oberyn was not the only one who could pull legs. It was you who killed her father, so simply no less. You and only you are responsible for it. He sounded awfully defensive. Maybe he had reason to be. All he had said was a simple sentence. But this was getting to be a drag, right? Do you happen to know where she is? I asked, not mockingly this time. The girl's safety was worrying me from some reason. I was still somehow human, repulsive. You haven't heard they send the poor girl to the Silent Sisters the same day you lot were caught. They believed you had fucked her and taken her maidenhead. Did not even bother to listen to her side of the story. The world now believes the same. Did you though? He asked smirkingly. She's a child, I say, growling in a low voice. Maybe in your part of the country this practice is common. It's nothing but evil to me. His face grew solemn at that. It was not the insult that silenced his laughing face. Feel sorry for the girl too. Dornish are a passionate people, but we do not hurt little girls. Everywhere in the world they hurt children, my prince, especially if they happen to be girls. I speak silently. It was true. This world specifically was an horrendous one. Where can I find her? This gets his smile back on. You mean to rescue her? He asks, his tone interested. She made a mistake, well, if you could call it that. She did not want to get her wings clipped. So yes, I might just adopt the girl. He was just shamelessly smiling now. Have an idea, but I will join too, he beamed. Ugh no, you were the one to catch us and put us in this situation, man. I was taken aback by his audacity. My way of apologizing. I will take you to the Starry Sept tonight, he winked. Fine, but nothing else. Got it, I say, immediately turning to leave. I had everything going for me. I did not want to associate with this dude. He was unpredictable and uncontrollable. I hated that about a human. You are much better a man than I thought you would be. I must say it is rare to meet men who take life so casually but also care about it. I thought you were just another man exploiting a young runaway girl. He spoke seriously. I looked back before speaking. Well, you made your thoughts known to everyone. That was because I believed it myself. A young girl with two older men who are not family is not a story of companionship usually, mostly. He spoke as he looked at me again in a serious way. This man had to be bipolar. Cause ain't no way all of this is just an act. If so, he is better than I could have hoped. If that was your first thought, then I suppose you have a few screws loose too. It was foolish of you to make his assumption and present it as fact. You're a prince and such impulsiveness may not affect you, but it affects others. Was I any other man, what would be my odds of coming out of that interaction alive? It must be a game to you, but at least try to refrain yourself. My words head was properly serious now. The words had hit the chord. I was not going to wait to see if my words had any real affect. I began walking out the door. You are not from Yati, his voice behind me uttered. I have traveled far and wide, truly seen the world. But in my great adventures I do not think I have encountered someone from Yati that looks like you. Enver seen a more Westerosi-looking foreigner. I must say, you would fit right in here. And that is exactly why I had no interest in associating with this dude. And you don't look like a Westerosi, does it matter? I spoke without turning back. No, I suppose it does not. Chapter 17. Starry Sept was one of the holiest temple of the faith of the Seven. It was well over 1,000 years and stood in Old Town beside the Honeywine. Before the construction of the Great Sept of Baelor, it served as the residence of every High Septon and was the spiritual heart of the whole place. Apparently built by some lord in honor of his teacher who became the first High Septon. All things considered, it was a beautiful. Constructed from black marble beneath a great dome, it contained magnificent stained glass windows. The cooler rainbow was pretty to look at, The prince and the otherworld visitor had decided to enter at night before the city slept. Helios had to trust Oberyn's plans. Unlike Helios, the prince was an experienced adventurer. He had been in the Starry Sept before. He would know. Even during the night the old town was full of activity, the city was still loud and merchants were still trading. Oberyn Martell had used one of the many doors to sneak Helios in the Sept. They had climbed the outer walls of the building to enter the area reserved for the Septons and the Sisters, but not being spotted while in the main structure was the most difficult part, to Oberyn at least. Helios's super senses were all active. Even a single whisper had not gone unnoticed, but keeping this up was a challenge in and of itself. He was used to using one sense at a time of two at most. It was proving difficult to use them all at once in perfect coordination. Many times he had to stop and reset his senses after they became overstimulating, much to Oberyn Martell's confusion, but he made no objection. They had arrived to the chambers of the Septas. But the path from there was one narrow corridor. If someone was there they would be caught. Oberyn apparently did not know that. Somehow we would get caught, he stated as a matter of fact. I think this is where out apps end, my friend. Giving up so soon? Helios questioned mockingly. He was not going to miss a chance to throw slander at the man-whore in front of him. It was personal. You do realize we are now talking about entering a one-way corridor. We do not even know which room the poor girl is locked up, he growled at Helios. Helios chuckled internally. Well, I do, he told the prince, explaining further when he say Oberyn's raised eyebrow. I looked into it with the Hightower gods and maids, paid them well. The explanation seemed to satisfy him. It was his X-ray vision, really. This was perhaps the best of his powers. He would not deny he had used them for the wrong reasons ever since he got them. But who in their right mind would not use it that way? Helios would die on that hill. Let's go, he spoke before entering the narrow path in the lower floor of the Sept. Oberyn followed behind. Have you ever tasted a Septa before? I have to say it is rare to meet such fine women. Don't let the austerity and faith fool you, he muttered to Helios, barely a whisper. What a curveball. This dude is with me on a serious mission that would humiliate his family if he were caught. He probably would not care, but they would take my head. At least they would try. Helios knew he could do this alone. It would be easier even to not waste time hissing and slouching and running. But he had not a single clue where the girl might have been. Oberyn being the only one whom he could ask, and the crazy bastard wanted in. Done many septas before? Curious. The life of a celibate and someone bound by chains for life was worse than prison. Some were certainly here not by choice. A few, he smirked. This man had a problem. He would breed a child of the forest if given leave. They had made their way deep inside the place, hiding behind pillars when a septa walked by. The chamber of Rhea was close enough. Helios could see her, curled up in a fetal position on her bed. Not a good sign. He was uncomfortable. Even now he had no clue why he was wasting breath on this girl. She was the one who chose to run away. This was a big enough scandal as in. Then she was caught with a foreign lord and his old shield. This was devastating to Aunt Lady's reputation. Finding a good husband would be impossible now. After running for a while longer, they were in front of her door. Helios could hear her whimpering. He was nervous. Why was he nervous for this child he had called a nuisance? He would not know. Or rather, he did know, but he did not like the answer. The door was locked from the outside. Helios could have smashed through it, but that would make noise. His crew was not ready yet. He had assigned Luther to ready the crew and collect his armor. The blacksmith had seriously upped his game after hearing of Helios's victory, effortless and over in under 2 minutes. Perhaps the most quick and embarrassing trial by combat in the history of trial by combats. The armor had reduced the original time to just 3 more days. That arrogant shit was lying about the timings and the design complexity. Everything for their escape was ready. They would set sail for Essos immediately after the rescue and Oberyn would go his way. The door problem was resolved when Oberyn had pulled out a dagger and begun his work. It took 3 whole minutes before the lock opened. As they entered the door, a foul smell of sweat and blood had entered Helios's nostrils. He froze in his place. The sight in front of him shook him. It was Rhea, pale and thin. Wounds all over her body, scars that had not healed, too fresh to be old, patches of skin in her arms purple. She was scared and she had pushed herself back, leaning against the wall, covering herself in her blanket. Then she looked at the ones who had opened the door, really looked. She paused in her place. It was a pause that made Helios sweat. His fingers were shaking. This had never happened, ever. Then Rhea got up from her bed, running towards Helios. But he could see clearly enough. She was limping. Helios backed just a step before feeling her arms surround his back. Her face met against his abdomen. She was hugging him, so tight that she had thought if she let go he would disappear. Her weeping brought Helios back to his senses. He felt his own heart began screaming, smashing against his ribs. It was not fear that had made it so. Where were you? She mustered, barely being able to speak as she sobbed uncontrollably. Any other day Helios would have simply shrugged. She was not his responsibility. What right did she have to expect a god to waste his breath on her? This was not that day. I'm sorry. The words did not suit his tongue. He felt as though speaking them had made him nauseous. Helios looked back, a single glance at Oberyn. He had never seen the prince so serious. Why were you so late? Her sorrow had given way to her anger. She was right, he was late. It had been 7 days since he had discussed her escape with the prince. It would have been quicker had the news from King's Landing not arrived. The entire continent was discussing the holy war against the Red Religion. The starry sept was filled with activity, there was no way to enter, and Helios had not thought that the septons do such things. He removed her hands from his waist and kneeled. His gaze meeting hers, her eyes looked broken and lost. A flicker of wrath had entered his heart. "Who did this to you, child?" His voice had never been so emotionless, yet it was easy enough to figure out. He was angry. Chapter 18, Hightor. The hour of the wolf had arrived, and with a news that brought Helios a sense of wrath he had not experienced in his entire life. The truth was simple enough. The girl was not his concern, she was a stray he had kept out of the kindness of his heart. It was simple enough. But that pill was proving to be a hard one to swallow. He had never believed he would care for someone again. His previous life was not a good one, he recalled. He was never the type to make friends, he was never the type to be noticed. His confidence he had none. His family had made sure of that, his mother knew not but reminding him of his miserable existence. How ungrateful he was. Even in school he used to sit in a corner where no one ever noticed him. He had found a few friends, everyone has friends. He had one he loved more than others. There was also a woman who had his heart. Never the one to experience the joy of life most people cherished. He knew that feeling all too well. He was not special, he was not good at anything, and he was certainly not someone who would be remembered after he was gone. He just was. Even those he loved had abandoned him. He had sworn he would never love again, never care again, but perhaps a starving man cannot even resist a plain bread. It was the truth of it. He had found a life where he could do anything he wanted. This one where he would not care about others, but he did, and it angered him, seeing Rhea like that had enraged him to a degree he did not know possible. He was going to kill the septons. He was going to turn this ancient sept to ash. That much was certain, but he had to get all of them to the crew first. Luther and Rhea had to be safe. Even Oberyn should be on his way. Safe and sound, escaping the sept was no more difficult than entering. They had been lucky. The sept was basically empty. This morning alone it was filled to the brim with preachers preaching about the Holy Crusade. It was interesting to Helios how the Red Witches were the enemy Arhaller needed to be dealt with eventually. The other gods had not acted yet, they were not on his watch. Lucky were such deities. Helios could not think about the song Rhea had spoken. Her father, the man he had killed, was truly vile after all. He realized that even by accident he had not killed any innocent souls, except the people of King's Landing. But that was not his fault. Helios had carried Rhea on his back. The girl was malnourished too. They made their way to the outer walls. Oberyn leaped first, Helios leaped second. The escape was successful. Helios breathed a sigh of relief. It was over. Now all he had to do was get her to the ship. After walking together until the sept was a significant distance away, Oberyn finally spoke. It was a good experience. This was a fun adventure. He had no light behind his eyes. It was not fun. He had learnt things about his own faith that silenced him. Rhea was not the only one getting beat. This whole sect of silent sisters was filled with such women, broken down until they were nothing but machines. The septons did as they pleased. The septas too, but being a silent sisters was an existence worse than even the wall. The docks were near. Helios could see his ship, but it was empty. There was no one on board. His belongings were not there too. His vault was gone. He stopped dead in his tracks. How was the only thing that entered his mind. He had not been caught. Where was Luther, his vault? What happened? Oberyn asked, breaking away from his sulking. He was rarely ever sulking. My crew. It's not there. Luther was supposed to be at the dock's gate. Helios murmured just loud enough for the other two to hear. Maybe he is at the ship. Oberyn spoke. He was starting to realize something. What are you thinking? Helios asked, almost in a hurry. This is starting to seem fake. He spoke as Helios's thoughts came crashing down. He too realized this was not a real escape at all. It made sense now. Helios spoke. Is never that empty, not ever. I had noticed but shrugged it off as luck. We encountered no septon or septa so far. Even when I broke the lock, no one from the other rooms took notice. Helios was frustrated. This should have been simple. Knew I was going to go for her, but how? He was angry now. I cannot presume to tell, but maybe your friend Luther, he was a Hightor man before, wasn't he? Oberyn spoke. He was smart enough to see the trap he had walked in. No, he would not. He wouldn't. Helios wanted to argue. Luther was the first man he had supper with. He could not sell him out so easily. My family is far more corrupt and scheming than they show to the world. Rhea finally spoke, gathering her strength. That was how they brought their enemies to ruin. Helios was too stunned to speak. The Hightors had a reason to hate him, to want him dead, but this whole plot was outlandish. They could have just tried poisoning him or assassination when no one was looking, but this was something else. They had expected a rescue attempt, and convinced the entire sept to follow through. Helios was not aware that the game was this complicated, but the look from Oberyn was enough to tell it was not. He too was stunned. You are a foreign lord. If they wanted to kill you, they could have done it in 1,000 ways, but to somehow involve an entire sept in it. No, one does not simply involve a sept in a plot, unless they own it. That in itself was a revelation. The Hightors were a faithful bunch, even were the one who built the starry sept. This was ridiculous. But Helios could not control himself any longer. Prince Oberyn, he woke the Dornish prince from his thoughts. Can you gather a crew? Helios was smart enough to realize if this was a conspiracy. Oberyn too was a part of it. He was a prince of a land that was an enemy of the land he stood on. He was amidst this mess. He could not afford to stay here a bit longer. When I had delivered you to them, they had wanted me to stay, were almost eager even. I choose not to. I might have saved my hide. I need to find Ilaria. Get a crew, you have to leave, take my ship, and keep her with you my prince. I gesture to Rhea, I will be back. I turn to leave. Where are you going? Oberyn and Rhea both asked in unison. To get something of mine back, gather a crew, take my ship, I will catch up. Helios spoke no more. Rhea seemed to have understood. Are you Tilda? Oberyn was cut off by Rhea. She looked at him with a seriousness and dread not belonging to a child. We need to leave now. The prince was taken aback, but there was no point in questioning the madman. He had to leave. When you see me again, do not be afraid. I shall explain everything. Helios did not turn around. His words were curt. Oberyn had 1,000 questions in his mind, but Helios had already walked away. Oberyn was on thin ice. He ran to the inn he was staying. This was urgent. Helios POV. The walk to the height was a slow and steady one. I knew they were no good guys, but I did not like being played, less so in such a humiliating fashion. I was not aware of what was truly going on, but I hated surprises. Luther had given me a big one. I could not help but recall another friend from another life. Was betrayal in my fate? Would Rhea betray me too, when she grows up? Would she also stab me in the back? He was hoeing to die slow and painful. I will open his guts and hang him from the top of this wretched tower. Even now my super senses had caught the weird smell around it, barely noticeable. The air around the tower was smelling different than what it was 7 days ago. The guards had allowed me entry without question. That was all the confirmation I could need. I could see a woman middle-aged waiting in front of the gates. She was dressed noble, surrounded by tens of guards. The gate opened with a loud crack. The air seemed to shift. It was a weird feeling I could not properly describe. Something was different. Greetings, foreigner. The woman had greeted me, her voice like honey, but I could see past that. There was a certain glee in her that anyone with a keen eye could notice. He had the keenest eyes of all. Explain yourself. I wanted desperately to show her my eyes in their true glory, wanted to watch as she was drained of color. Calm down now, foreigner. No need to be so brazen. That is not how one speaks to a lady. Let's try again, shall we? She took my silence as approval. Oh, how badly I wanted to laser her in half. I was already at my wit's end. She was not making me calmer. My name is Malora of House Hightwer, the eldest daughter of Lord Leighton Hightwer. You were expected, foreigner, she spoke, almost giggling. Even the guards around her were tense. Stange, enough of this farce. Take me to your father now, woman. My eyes glue red. I was going to kill them after I had looked her father in the eyes. They all could tremble. And they did. The guards backed away, muttering prayers, but the woman remained unfazed. What? Oh, finally, I was so hopeful that it would all be true. She clapped her hands, her eyes watering. What was happening right now? You know, they all call me the Mad Maid, all until 18 days ago, until you. I could not hold back my shock. This delighted the woman even more. You are a foreigner, just from a particularly faraway place. Yes, she smiled. My eyes stopped glowing. This went deeper. Come, we must not ruin the talk here. Let's talk up. She began walking away, her back turned. The guards, however, were terrified, their hearts beating and their spears pointed at me. How the fuck did she know me? It was the only question in my mind. My previous desire for their deaths was gone, replaced by something far more chilling. Curiosity. I was meant to be a god, yet I was on the receiving end of this. I followed behind her. The guards were terrified but pointed their spears at me and followed too. Their hands were shaking. Any other day it would be hilarious to me, climbing almost 3 floors. I finally made my way to the main hall. It was far from empty. There were at least 100 people inside, wearing black robes which were covering them from head to toe. Their faces were covered by a plain steel mask, only 2 holes so that they could see. I could see through air faces just fine. Their hearts were also racing. But it was not the same rhythm as the terrified gods. It was a rhythm belonging to someone who was exited that bothered me more than it should. They were in a semicircle surrounding a chair. A man in red robes was sitting on it. It was Leighton Hightwer. You're finally here, stranger from another world. He spoke. He did not have this authority in his voice before. What is going on, Leighton? I too spoke clearly, glancing around the creepy freaks. Then I caught it. He was one of them. Luther was on the left end of the group. The realization came to me in the form of a crushing wave. This entire time I had been the puppet. There is a tale as old as the existence of the Citadel. Leighton began that when the end of the world nears its end, magic would be more powerful than ever before. Unseen forces shall clash in the sky, leaving thousands dead in its wake. A visitor would appear. That got my full attention. A visitor who would bring the old world back, the one that existed thousands of years before the first men and the children of the forests and gates. He would fall from the sky and bring chaos the world is not meant to see. He finished. What is this diaplay? I asked. Ever since the Andal days, we Hightwers have carried a burden given to us by the Prophet of the Seven to prevent you from happening. The Citadel was made to stop magic from ever gaining power. Starry Sept was built to stop the faith of men to take shape. Malora was giddy. Her gaze had never left mine. She was enjoying every second of this. Eighth of men to take shape. This did not make sense. Magic and faith are one. The 7 above gave man free will, and he dreamed, and his dreams made the world. And its many monters. Leighton spoke. This was not what we had brand the builder build the Hightwer, and it was made in such a way that it prevented magic from thickening around it. Since 8,000 years, this ancient secret order had worked to halt the magic. Westeros was the most free from magic thanks to us, and for good reason. There was a greater curse at play. What any civilization that had used magic to prosper had collapsed, bringing doom and despair. We dreamed of you. Malora was now speaking. You had appeared in all our dreams 18 days ago, and we knew it was time to break the curse. How so? Enlighten me. It was not a question. By killing you, of course, she smiled. The 100 men around me revealed their daggers. The tens of guards held their spears tighter. They also knew apparently. Then why were they scared? With your corpse the world shall be whole again. Ha 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 ha. All of Malura's confidence faltered. The hearts of all the Mystars, Septons and soldiers picked up pace. Haha, this is amazing. I spoke. This was simply too good. What? Malura was now speechless. Give every single one of you one chance. Make it count. I chuckled as their faces began to pale. These fools would not walk out of here. Kill him. Now. Leighton panicked. The first Mystar took his chance, tossing a glass bottle filled with a purple liquid at my face. It shattered. The liquid met my face. It was an acid of some kind. I wiped my face. They were nervous now. A guard pushed his spear my way. That did not work. Embarrassing. This whole cult meetup was a good lore drop. I had got what I wanted. There was no point in holding back now. No point in hiding now. I flew, rising several feet above the air. This was entertaining. I chuckled. But you see, this world isn't yours to make whole again. My eyes glue a deep murderous red. This time Malura was afraid. They were all afraid. Without another word, twin beams of heat and hatred erupted, slicing through the thick walls as though they were parchment. The lasers went through the walls, releasing onto the outside sky. Like beacons from outside, the proud white tower seemed to implode from within, fire bursting through the shattered walls. A spectacle so bright. The entire night sky had turned white. I was careful to avoid the circus freaks in the tower. They would die dreading. I spun, my lasers still active. In the initer upper part of the tower was split in half. The stone crumbling down from the ceiling above. A large chunk smaced through a dozen men, Leighton one of them. I had roughly a couple seconds to retrieve my belongings before the entire upper half of the height, which was a 1,000 feet, would fall onto the city below. I took a short look in Luther. He would die here. I grabbed my vault next to him, and the armor set next to it. Instantaneously I flew out, in a fraction of a second. Leaving behind the bugs, let the city burn and break and get crushed. The ants had overstepped, trying to kill me. A god, their little burrows will break and be ruined. The height where bloodline ends in the next few seconds. The Steri-Septa will end now. I flew out the falling tower. The world had slowed, ceases moving entirely. I had taken my time to cherish the paused, terrified faces before flying to the next location of mine. The ruin of one of the center of religion in this wretched world was spectacular. The ancient sanctuary stood bathed in a faint scent of magic. I had realized it now. The weird, inexplainable tinge in my senses was my detection of magic. I descended slow through the great rose window. The few people had entered it, hiding from the Hightor fall. The window shattered loudly. I hovered over the altar above the heads of the 7 gods. I looked at the insect below. Terror had clutched their small, scared faces. Your gods are not coming. Chapter 19. The sail Helios had flown back to his ship, now occupied by the Dornishmen. He was done turning 2 of the great monuments of the 7 kingdoms to cinders. He was careful to not kill the common folk, but he had made no attempt to save them either. When the great tower collapsed onto the Honeywine, it had crushed at least a few hundred people in all the ships. The entirety of the docks were gone, but his ship had set sail before that. Even better was the burning of the Sept. The Septas had been praying so diligently. After beating and starving the little girls, they had prayed when retribution came for them. The city was mess now. That was well deserved. He had been fooled. How did he so conveniently come across Luther? That bit did not make sense. Every word Luther has spoke was honest, he could tell. Luther was even worried for him in the trial. Then how did he betray him? Helios wanted to ask him, but he was too clouded by wrath to give any of them a chance to speak. Helios had enough love for his first true Comapnian to make his end quick. What had happened mattered little now. Flying to his ship, he could see the entire crew outside staring in terror at the destruction of Old Town. Well, cannot blame them. He had really went overboard. Helios did not remember Homelander's laser being strong enough to turn the night sky into the day sky. Looking at the terrified crew below him, decided to scare them further. With a loud sonic boom he descended down. The loud noise had made them lose all their sanity as they looked at Helios descending from the sky. Their faces were no different to that of dead men. They had lost all color. Helios landed softly on the deck, right in front of Oberyn, Rhea and Ilaria Sand. His massive vault and armor on his shoulders. With a loud thud he simply dropped the vault on the ground. Not a soul reacted. Their minds had failed to comprehend the series of events they had just been witness to. Even the Red Viper had looked dead. If not for his heart that had skipped several beats, he would have taken him for a corpse. The rest were too shook to speak. Rhea was the only one with a semblance of wit to her. She had seen this up close after all. I think I need a warm glass of milk. Helios smiled, looking at the living corpses before him. Needed to break the tension somehow. Several moments passed. Not a soul reacted as a vein bulged in Helios's forehead. But before he could say something further, Rhea finally began to speak. Yo, you killed them. As if right on cue, the rest also woke up from their stupor. Oberyn recovered, grabbing a dagger. Ilaria had retreated behind him. The Dornishmen raised their spears at me, their hands shaking violently. The heartbeats were too loud. But among them was one girl that was not a Dornish, but had worn green. She was a Hightor. He had not noticed her from above, too caught up in amusement looking at the faces of the Dornish below him. Are you? The prince muttered, barely a whisper, but Helios had heard him clear enough. Place was too crowded, he answered Ria's question first, much to the terror of everyone else, his gaze never leaving the girl that was sticking out like a sore thumb. She had not been brave enough to look up and meet his eyes. Looking at the floor shaking, while this was entertaining to watch, he had just done too many things, got to know too many things to waste his breath now. He took a glance at every man's face who had held a weapon, then turning to the girl again. She shrunk beneath his gaze. Helios pointed to Oberyn, tell them to put their weapons down if they value their lived. It was simple enough command, but Oberyn did not react for several moments. After some time, he put down his dagger first, put down the weapon. Now, he was scared, very much so, but he composed himself well. I then answered his question, I am a god, my prince, you just did not know it. I spoke at a tone that would make a tiger panic and a look that would make a dragon crumble. Helios had realized while he looked far better than the Homelander he knew, he was also much more intimidation. What does that mean? His fear had given rise to frustration, normal in men who were not afraid often. It was a divine revelation. The Hightower was full of heretics and cultists. They spoke of things, of conspiracies so ancient, schemes so old and vile that they had to be removed from the picture. Otherwise all your lived would be in danger. Helios spoke in a calm, serene voice that only scared him more. Look, that's beside the point. Now you have seen enough for one day, we shall speak of this tomorrow. Helios spoke, pointing his finger at the girl hiding behind two Dornish men. What are you doing here, young lady? Rhys stepped forward. She had come to warn us of what happened to Sir Luther about the conspiracy. That got his full attention. She had come to warn us of the dark magic Malora was using to subdue the Hightower. Elaborate. The girl stepped forward, still quivering. She spoke, Mad maid. She had finally left her chamber. She began whispering into everyone's ears, and they followed. On the guards she used some dust, the color of rainbow. The my stars were with her. I had hidden when she gulped. She went for the docks. I had followed her. She threw the same dust on Sir Luther's face. I hid amongst the common folk until I found Rhea. She finally finished, breathing loudly. It all clicked in Helios's mind. He had just murdered his only friend in cold blood. He had murdered all the guards in cold blood, even when he knew they were afraid, even when he knew they were shaking from fear. They were under hypnosis. All of them were under mind control, trapped within their own minds, and he had killed them without bothering to know more. He had killed Luther. This was all Malora Hightower's fault, and he had killed them, all the innocents, because he was too angry. The realization hit him like a train. Who was Malora Hightower truly, and was anything that she said ever true?